Hello We Are Movie Club, it's me Jenny, and this week's movie was a Danish film called The Hunt, which was picked by Mette, whose link is somewhere on screen, and she's one of the old school SourceFed/DeFranco reviewers, and she's just started coming back, so welcome back, it's lovely to have you, you seem awesome. And my quick review for this film is, it's grim. It discusses a lot of really uncomfortable issues in a very direct way, asks some very difficult to answer questions, and doesn't shy away from the fact that the answers are just as difficult as the questions. Just going from the acting throughout is extraordinary. Mads Mikkelsen, I'm so sorry about the pronunciation of his name, but he does such a great job throughout. The child acting is also brilliant, as well as the adult acting. Just the way that the entire direction is handled, so it feels very realistic, very lived in. No one's super good looking, but no one looks like they've been uglified. They just look like normal people. It's a normal setting. It feels like a very lived in, just natural world. They don't mess with the saturation. It just feels very realistic. It's chilly but not icy. It's you know, beautiful in the right places, but it's not anything more than you would expect in a real world. It's very human, the way that it's directed, the way that they've subtly got reaction shots and stuff, where even the most minor background characters, you notice them and you remember them and you know what they're looking at and why, and just the way that it directly puts you into the head of this lead character, and you just feel so bad for him throughout because you can completely understand why this is going on and where he's coming from, and why all of these characters, for the most part, are almost entirely in the right for going through what they're going through. There is no wrong person in this. It's all just mistakes and sad circumstances. And it's just one of those really difficult questions about the situation where, when you're dealing with issues of child abuse, where do you draw the line? Because you have to take it seriously, you have to look at all of the options, and if a child is in danger, you are going to vote for that child over the adult, because the issue of consent has been really in the forefront of the YouTube world for the last week. A lot of big YouTubers have been considering the issue of consent and talking about it, and when it comes to a child, there is a level of consent that is not there, and then trying to ask them about a situation that they've been in, because they can't communicate what has happened to them. You don't know what the truth is, and so you can understand this story where you can't know for sure either way. Even when this girl is saying, no, I just said something silly, it's not true, it could be denial. And there were a couple of points in this that made me particularly unhappy with the way it was handled, particularly the leading questions when she's first interviewed, and you know, some of the stuff like that, but it's such a uncomfortable, awkward situation where you can't take her word. Once she's said what she says, once the words have been thrown out, you cannot take her word not seriously. And it's one of those things where I almost can compare this story to a combination of Atonement, which has got very similar issues, and The Crucible, because this is The Hunt. It's not just about the background of this hunting community or the fact that they're trying to find who's responsible. It is a witch hunt. Once the words have been thrown out, once the accused has happened, there is no way that this person can deny their accusations without further proving their guilt. If he were to leave this town, it would prove his guilt. If he were to accept it and take it sitting down, it would prove his guilt. The fact that he's angry about being accused would prove his guilt. It is a witch hunt. And it's a very justified witch hunt, because if this crime has been committed, then you have to look into the issue. So it's a very difficult film to watch. In fact, I'd say it's probably only equalled to Requiem for a Dream and Once We're Warriors in terms of the difficulty of watching this film, because it's so difficult. And this one, more than perhaps the other two, is so very down to earth, so very set in a reality, that it's very difficult to ask the questions. And another issue that I've been kind of thinking about for a while and discussing is gender inequality. And for the most part, from a female perspective, you talk about female inequality in the workplace, but in this case it is male inequality in the workplace, particularly when working with children. There's a rule that most of the teachers and teaching assistants are female, the majority are female, and the majority of head teachers are male. So that there's a distance often between male teachers and female teachers and their contact with the children, and whether or not that's an ongoing thing, or whether or not it'll change anytime soon, or whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing to have this gender separation. I think personally it's a bad thing, and it leads to this sort of stereotyping. None of the other teachers in the school are suspected of having sexual contact with these children. It is just the one man. And it goes both ways. Gender inequality does go both ways, and this is an incredibly sad film about that. It's so very realistic, it's so very brutal. It's an issue of communication. It reminds me a lot about, you know, a certain celebrity who was accused of this sort of action, and I can remember distinctly saying at the time when the case was going on, if he is innocent, then I feel incredibly sorry for him, and I feel incredibly horrified by the victims who are saying these things unjustly. But if he is guilty, then the fact that he might get away with it is equally, if not more, horrific. And once the word's been thrown out there, there is no way to take it back. And it's just such a difficult concept, and it's so rarely discussed, that this film is definitely a difficult watch, but it's one that I think everyone should watch as a way of understanding people and looking at situations that are this complicated in a complex manner, and not looking at just one side or the other. And that's my review for this film. I'm sorry if I rambled on and was very repetitive and all of those things. I hope you find this useful, and feel free to leave your comments down below. I don't know who's picking next week's movie club, but their link is somewhere on screen when I know who they are. And thank you for the pick, Mette. This was an excellent film, so well directed, so emotive. It really got me thinking, and I really hope it got other people thinking about these issues, even if it was incredibly difficult to watch. So thank you very much, and I will see you guys all soon. Bye guys.